Good morning and welcome in. This is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel.
You are a vital part of our game.
Thank you for having me on.
All the way to the green. Woo! Boy, was that fun.
I've always wanted to be on 5 Clubs. Thanks, Gary.
Good morning. Welcome into 5 Clubs. Great to have you with us on this Monday edition live on Golf Channel and, of course, PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. I'm Gary Williams. This program presented always by Century Insurance. Their investments in golf run deep from the first tee to the USGA to the PGA Tour and right here at 5 Clubs. And their business is business insurance. They want to be right by you. In this hour, Billy Horschel will be with us. He's got TGL tonight. He loves the environment. Looking forward to a chat with him. He's played 5 events off the injury. Of course, he played late in the year. We'll get a health update and talk about a number of things with the always forthcoming. And he will be very energetic later today for TGL for Atlanta Drive. And then at the bottom of the hour, Michael Bamberger, who's a fantastic writer. He's written a number of books that I've thoroughly enjoyed. Love his view. Love what he writes about. He finds angles and viewpoints that are interesting, illuminating, and I'm interested, as always, to have a conversation with Michael Bamberger of Golf Magazine. And of course, we're going to get to all that happened over the weekend. But one of the things that did happen, look, I love sports. I love how sports is presented. And I was a little kid in 1980. And I will tell you that the hockey game yesterday, and I'm not knee deep, I'm not a puckhead, love it, have great appreciation for the skill, for the speed, for the physicality. Epic, truly epic. It's when you see elite athletes playing at a level that is unimaginable, and whether it was Canada or the United States, and obviously Jack Hughes, he makes the goal. Connor Hellebuyck, remarkable. And that's the thing that's the connector, because flow state, which you know I love, and these spaces that athletes get into occasionally that allows them the freedom to perform at levels maybe you've never seen before, or they do it more often than others, and you think that that's their natural state. It isn't. Connor Hellebuyck was in the flow state to have a game like he had. And last thing about that, and hockey players are amazing for all their physicality, and the women too. They were sensational as well, not as dramatic because they were simply better than everybody else, is the fact that hockey players, to win in the fashion in which they won, hockey players do something no other athletes do. They throw everything in the air simultaneously. Gloves, sticks, helmets. Jack Hughes' helmet, I hope it didn't hit somebody in the noggin in the 12th row. That, to me, is just unbridled joy. That made me smile, get teary. It was amazing. And then the bow, Tirico, because I love the mechanics of television. The guy's extraordinary. Extemporaneously, no prompter, no script, puts a bow on the whole affair in 60 seconds seamlessly. Amazing stuff. All right, let's get to the golf. Winners from this past weekend, as we look at them, presented by Golf Pride every week. They are the standard and grips globally, and the game is played globally, as evidenced by this. From LA to Thailand to Kenya. It is Jacob Bridgeman, more on him in a moment, at the Genesis Invitational, his first win. Gino Tinakun, that's her 8th, winning at home for the first time. The Honda LPGA Thailand, pushed to the end. And for the LPGA, even though it was clumsy in week 1 with Nelly, they get Nelly, and then several weeks later, their second event, they get the #1 player in the world. It's a good start. It's not exactly extraordinary momentum because it's been stops. It's been a start and then a stop. And the start was stopped after 50 holes, but nonetheless 1 and 2 have won. And finally, Casey Jarvis, who doesn't turn 23 until July. This is somebody who is the only amateur in history to win the South African Amateur, the African Amateur, and also the African Amateur stroke play. 22 right now. And he led wire to wire, and he said, I was very nervous because I wanted to win in front of my dad. Fantastic. That's great. Jacob Bridgeman, 26, by way of Inman, South Carolina, and Clemson University. Not only did Jacob Bridgeman prove that his start this year was a trend line that was foreshadowing possibly crossing the line, if you look at all the things that he did, He makes a par on the last hole. He wins with a big lead that shrank away, and it also kind of accentuates the point that I was talking about when I had the book club last week, and one of the books was The War of Art. And it talks about how resistance is strongest the closer you get to the finish line. And whatever those elements of resistance are, it could be the opponent, it could be your mind, which affects your body, it could be because it means so much to you that it does debilitating things. Well, Jacob Bridgeman somehow, some way got it done. And that was the other thing, is that yes, the lead is great. The lead is also something that can change the way that you're approaching holes, but he did it. And he did it in a way that hadn't been done very much in the ShotLink era. And that is, in terms of the totality of his performance, in terms of all elements in the bag, to be the best iron player and the best putter at the same time. You would say, well, that guy's always going to win. Yeah, but you can see that. The fourth player in the ShotLink era to win while leading the field in both strokes gained, approach, and putting. That is lethal to do that. It's also incredibly rare to do it. And yes, Riviera was soft, so the greens were incredibly receptive, but nobody else did it. And while the greens were soft, they were also weirdly incredibly fast, which is, even though you can see putt after putt rolling by the hole 3.5 to 4 feet, and you're going, gosh, I'll learn my lesson. And then you hit like Rory did on the 11th hole. He hits this majestic second shot that was roughly, 235, 240. Nobody else can do that. And it lands on the green and it backs up. I mean, that's unusual, and who knows? As we talked about last week, maybe it changes. Scottie Scheffler was last. He was last in this golf tournament when night fell on Thursday night, so he had to come back on Friday. And over the last 62 holes, Scottie Scheffler was 16 under par. He didn't finish in the top 10. He gets squeezed out of it because there were players still on the golf course. When he did post, left the last birdie opportunity on the 18th hole right in the throat, about a revolution and a half short of posting 12, which would have been good enough. The doggedness just wouldn't give it up. 5 over through 10 holes and played the last 62, 16 under par. And one thing about looking at this little mini trend of these Thursdays and the fact that he, is not gotten off to good starts, and you're like, well, his approach play and his putting. Let me point out one other thing, because the reason why so many people appreciate his efficiency and why he's the best salvation expert since Tiger is scrambling. He was third in scrambling on the PGA Tour last year at just under 69%. He's 8 for 20 on those first rounds in those last 3 events. That's 40%. Efficiency is something that when you turn 74 into 71, yeah, you can talk about the putts made. It's the other stuff as well. So the final leaderboard from the Genesis, and again, this is back-to-back Signature Series events, and you got a lot of sharks that are in the bowl, so you're likely to have an attractive final leaderboard. Jacob Bridgeman, obviously for the first time. Kurt Kitayama, who was won twice on the PGA Tour. His first top 10 of the year, 64 on Sunday. Adam Scott, his first top 10, he shot 63. First top 10 since the 2024 Tour Championship. Aldrich Pietgeiter, also his first top 10. He had missed 3 or 4 cuts. And last week he finished tied for 60th in a no-cut event. Jake Knapp, what a great start to the year. Incredible iron play and putter all week. 4th top 10 in 5 starts, and the 5th start was a tie for 11th at the Sony. Cam Young birdied the last 3 holes to jump up for that tie for 7th. Colin Morikawa off the win, so he's in a good place. Tommy Fleetwood, for him, back-to-back good weeks. A 4th at Pebble, a 7th, tie for 7th at the Genesis, and finally Xander Schauffele. That's a lot of tall cotton right there. I mean, that is a really, really attractive leaderboard. And then the number 1 player in the world who was entertaining everybody because he was off so early, he gives Golf Channel, which leads into the 3rd and final round. They have his full breadth of his 3rd round when he starts on Saturday in the morning in LA. Same thing yesterday, and then CBS puts a bow on it on his last couple of holes. And even though it wound up being a very close golf tournament, Rory makes that roadmap on the 18th. By the way, overall, his putting for the week was very, very good, but he He missed 5 putts inside 13 feet on the front 9 alone when he really could have put heat on Jacob Bridgeman. But nonetheless, one last point about Rory with the 2 starts. And he had a 64 on Sunday in the final round, bogey-free at Pebble Beach. Again, the golf course was a little bit softer. But I thought in total, because we saw a lot of his shots, and yes, the golf course was soft, it doesn't change the approach. The flighting of his shots, the array of shots that he was executing, and I know he went back to his other irons, and I don't expect him to be going back to those cavity back irons. In addition to the iron play, the apexes of a lot of his drivers, including the way that he was playing the 18th hole, these low bullet bleeders that were hitting soft fairways and still running 30, 35 yards, and basically starting it on the spine of the fairway and letting it just kind of bleed out to the right side of the fairway, which gives him, look, he can shape it right or left into that 18th green at Riviera. It made me think about a couple of things. The artistry of what is required at Augusta National because of all the uneven lies that you have there. And then beyond that, Shinnecock and firm and fast. What he's done in his evolution of everyone, tagging him as what I think he primarily was, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, which was, he's an aerial player and he can still take it upstairs better than anybody. But windows open, shaping of shots, and low apex drivers, that's artistry. That is something that travels everywhere, including places that get very crispy and very, very bouncy. So now they pull the curtain down on the West Coast swing. We don't know what the West Coast is going to look like next year, and they come to Florida agronomically very, very different, much more penal and punitive if you hit foul balls because, you have a handful of water features on the West Coast swing. Florida is just, it is everywhere you turn, whether it's the Cognizant this week and obviously the Players and Bay Hill. Valspar, not so much. It's much more kind of like a Sand Hills kind of vibe in the Sand Hills of North Carolina, but nonetheless, scoring, resistance to scoring, it's a total adjustment. And if you look at over the last couple of years, we'll talk about it more as the week progresses. Smiley Kaufman with me on Wednesday as he goes to work really in full as NBC Golf Channel takes the baton up until the Masters when CBS returns. All right, so we take our first break. Billy Horschel expected to be with us here in a couple minutes. Michael Bamberger a little bit later on. More on Gina Tinakun as well. It is a Monday off of the closing ceremonies of the Olympics and the close of the West Coast on the PGA Tour. We're back on Golf Channel Live as well as PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. We're back in just a moment. Welcome back in this Monday edition of 5 Clubs Live on Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92, Sirius XM. This segment brought to you by Century Insurance. They do business insurance. Evaluate yours with them. They want to be right by you, and they're invested in golf at every level. First Tee, USGA, PGA Tour, and right here at 5 Clubs. All right, joining me now, he's going to work tonight. Little indoor golf for him. 8-time winner on the PGA Tour. Twice he won the flagship event on the DP World Tour, the BMW PGA Championship. FedEx Cup champion, the face of Atlanta Drive. He, of course, is Billy Horschel. And the brand placement is so impeccable for Atlanta Drive. I mean, are you kidding?
Hey, listen, we got to make sure that logo's seen everywhere. It's a great logo, and we need to make sure everyone understands what Atlanta Drive is and what TGL is, and I think we're doing a good job so far in 2 seasons now.
No doubt. I'm going to ask you about TGL, you, and then the league in just a minute. You and I spoke the other day, and you were updating me on health. 5 straight weeks, you get a week off. You take in a flag football tournament down in Orlando. Health-wise, recovery. Is recovery any different? Are you encouraged that recovery is getting close to what it used to be?
Yeah, I think going out to start the year, where I felt at the end of 25 and playing a couple events and how I felt at home, I felt really good. I felt optimistic that my game was going to be really sharp, and I felt body-wise I was going to be really good. And unfortunately, the game was a little bit off, which was sort of a little bit of a bummer. I played really good at home. I played some really good golf at home. I was playing against some of the boys and was taking a few dollars off of them. And then to get out on tour and actually having to play week after week, walk 8, 10, 12 miles a day, something I wasn't doing at home. I did play a couple events, but once you start getting on hilly terrain, Palm Springs, those two courses, the Stadium and Nicholas course, even though Palm Springs is flat, the way they're designed, the side hill walks up and down, you've got Torrey. So the hip itself, and since the torn labrum is healed, just the muscles need to build up endurance. I had 2 microfractures that are still healing as we speak. That takes about a year to 2 years to heal. So the hip itself is really good. I'm way ahead of schedule from everyone I talk to. They keep reminding me how far ahead of schedule I am. But in my mind, I'm never satisfied with being ahead of schedule. I want it to be completely 100%, and we're pretty close to being there. I think if anything, the endurance the first 5 weeks has increased in the hip and the walking ability, and now it's just getting the explosiveness out of that hip and the lower body to be a little bit better and back to where I was before the hip surgery.
Billy, I had Lucas Glover on a couple weeks ago, and he was saying Horschel is built for this stuff, indoor golf. We call it Billy time. I know you know Billy Kratzert well, and Billy has a great line that a lot of people love attention. Very few people like to be watched. I have always felt that you've been comfortable with who you are, and that is also being exuberant and animated and forthcoming. Is that why this environment agrees with you? Because it's not uncomfortable. It is different, but you like energy, right?
Yeah, I love the energy. I love when we play in front of a lot of fans, Waste Management, the Players Championship, majors. There's a lot of tournaments where we play in front of the fans, and when you're playing well, you can feed off that energy. You can feed off, the excitement that they have out there, supporting PGA Tour players, supporting each player in the tournament themselves. So I've always enjoyed that. I've always loved being the guy that has the ball at the end of the game. When I played baseball, I was second baseman and pitcher, and I loved being able to pitch in big games as a little leaguer. Nothing beyond little league, let me just say that right now. But I love those moments. I love it when it's on me, and when you got all these eyeballs watching it, like TGL, on a primetime basis. It's really cool. And in this environment where, listen, the stress level and sense of, trying to keep a card or play away in the majors or certain events, it's nothing like that. But we still have a lot of stress out here, but you can be more of yourself. And I think I've shown that over last year and this year, who I am really on a more day-to-day basis, who I am away from PGA Tour golf, because I think inside the ropes, I can be so focused and so locked in that sometimes the enjoyment, doesn't really, you don't see that on the outside a lot. You see the frustration that I may have or something, but inside, I'm enjoying being out on the PGA Tour. I'm enjoying the challenge, enjoying trying to compete with the best players in the world on a weekly basis.
Those putts we just showed, including that double breaker that it was like Jack in '86 on 17 at Augusta. It was the most extended celebration. If we put a stopwatch on this, if we replayed, it went on and on. Like, are you entertained? The chest bumping with Justin Thomas. But that is, look, you can value this any way you want. As somebody may watch the PGA Tour, but you can give it or take it away with respect to this. But isn't that part of it? That this allows you, again, in a very real, authentic way, to just be you, and that the stress is different, but it's not job related. Isn't that one of the values?
Correct. Listen, every guy who has come in here and played, they have talked about how nervous they are, very comparable to being nervous trying to win a golf tournament or trying to make a cut at a PGA Tour event. Obviously, the stress level and sense of playing for a job is different, but it allows you to be a little bit more authentic. I say not a little bit more. It allows us to show you more of who you are. And in this environment, we need to be entertainers. This is a completely different product than what people are used to seeing, 365 days out of the year, or they've seen for decades. So this is a product where we're showcasing our skills still, but we need to be entertainers and entertain the crowd and entertain the viewers out of watching on TV at home.
As far as this year, 2 big weeks coming up. And look, I think this is interesting for you guys because I find your ability to focus on next shot, mine doesn't drift. Sometimes it might, and there are different periods where you're more locked in than others. But is it only when you're away from it that your mind can drift to how big these next couple of weeks are? It reminds me a little bit when you're kind of pursuing a team spot, that you get reminded of it, but once you get out there, you're not thinking about the ramifications of a fourth as it's related to the Ryder Cup standings. Is that kind of similar to these 2 weeks, knowing how much you want to be in the Players?
Yeah, listen, I think when I'm out in the on the golf course and practicing and doing my thing, my mind is really locked into what I need to do. It's away from the golf course that I'm thinking about my position and not being the Players Championship right now, not being in the Masters. And so, I'm trying to, it's tough not to think about it. I let that thought come, I give it a little bit of weight, and then I let it go. I pass it on and move on to something else. And then when I'm out on the golf course, I'm not really thinking about, hey, this shot matters in the sense of maybe me qualifying for the Players Championship or me qualifying for the Masters. It's about me getting my job done and playing the best I can that day on that hole and trying to win a golf tournament. So these next 2 weeks are really big. I'm not in the Players Championship. Obviously, having that hip surgery, hurt me in that sense. But I feel really good with my game. I felt like what I did this past week on my off week at home with Todd Anderson. We just tightened up a few things. We just, clarified a couple things and created a cut pattern that we didn't have the first 5 weeks. I've hit a cut for the last 4 or 5 years, and the last 5 weeks the ball just wasn't cutting, and I didn't really have a pattern on the shot shape or the misses. So going the next 2 weeks, I feel comfortable with that, and I'm excited. Listen, I'm back in Florida. I love Florida, my home state, born and raised. I love being back on Bermuda greens. I've had success at both these courses, so I'm excited about not only these next 2 weeks, but going forward and where I think my game is going to be in a few months' time.
You've always been willing to share your views on everything, including the tour and direction. I'm curious what you think of Lucas Glover's election, not an appointment, an election to be the chairman of the PAC, and then that will subsequently produce a board seat for him 3 years following. What does that say, if anything, about the membership in terms of somebody who has been willing to run against the current? And why can it be really beneficial to have somebody who has views that don't necessarily jive with the top of the food chain?
Yeah, I think the public has a skewed opinion of what we as tour players and the PGA Tour is doing in the sense of they're just looking at, taking the opinions of the top players, and based off that, that's what they're going to create a new PGA Tour from. And that's not the truth. I mean, Brian Roloff has been meeting with a lot of PGA Tour players over the last 6-7 months, getting their thoughts, getting their views. Obviously, Lucas Glover's views is different than maybe a Patrick Cantlay or Adam Scott or Tiger Woods. But I think at the end of the day, what really matters the most is that there's a lot of PGA Tour players that are playing right now that care about the PGA Tour, that care about what the direction of the PGA Tour is going to be, and making it a better place over the next 5, 10, 25 years, making a lasting PGA Tour where it still has the success that it's had over the first 60 years. We have the same success over the next 60 and grow from that. And like I said, I think the viewpoints of different people is amazing, and I think Lucas Glover obviously does have views that are probably a little bit different than some other guys on the board. I think that's a great that's a great person to have on the board, just to sort of maybe look at things from a different perspective that someone may be missing.
I'll never forget when you did the interview with Jerry Foltz. And you got in your car and you said, I'm going to the tour and I'm going to win. And the reason, Billy, the reason I bring that up is that I think Jacob Bridgeman proves that the system, like I've never believed in any sport talent gets deprived. If skill and talent are there and commitment is there, someone's going to get to where everyone wants to be. It may take a little bit longer. And the reason I preface the question by saying that is some people think some things are going to be sacrificed as far as the structure going forward. What do you think are the principles that need to be bedrock, that need to be part of what the structure, whether it be cuts in every event, size of fields, whatever. What are you most passionate about in terms of the construct of the tour?
Listen, I think one thing I've been very passionate on is having a cut. I think a cut is a very valuable thing to the PGA Tour. It's very valuable to the history of the PGA Tour. To me, when I'm out there playing, and whether I'm on the cut line or just outside the cut line, or I'm playing with other guys, like, you can see how much it cares for somebody, whether they care about making that cut or not. If they're 3-4 back, some guys may just pack it in the last 9 holes, and that shows me that person may not have what it takes to be a PGA Tour player, may not have what it takes to win a golf tournament coming down to the stretch, and he may just be satisfied with finishing 8th, 9th, or 10th. I think a cut's very valuable to the PGA Tour. I think meritocracy is, we're going to continue to have that. Now, I hear a lot of people out in the public say that, we've cut cards by 25 cards last year, and we're taking away opportunities. I look at it a completely different situation. PGA Tour has been great, but it's really tough to satisfy 215 to 225 PGA Tour members a year and give them the fair amount of starts that they deserve on the PGA Tour to have a chance to keep a PGA Tour card, have a chance to compete in the FedEx Cup playoffs, have a chance to win the FedEx Cup. I think, and from my early times on the PGA Tour, I always felt if you had a PGA Tour card, you should be able to play in every open PGA Tour event that you want to play in. And we've done that this year, outside the Sony and outside WM, every open event going forward. If you are a full PGA Tour card holding member, you will be in that event. And so I think that's great. So we're creating better access to the players that have a PGA Tour card, giving them a fairer chance of keeping a job, of competing for all these different accolades that the PGA Tour have. And there's nothing against opposite field events. Listen, I've won an opposite field event, but it's less. I mean, unless you win or finish second, there's not a lot of value in sense of creating FedEx Cup points to help your position. Now, it may help in sense of making you a better player, but in sense of trying to keep a card, it's very tough to do that by playing 5 or 6 opposite field events that some of these guys were having to do. Now that they're going to be able to play in every open field event going forward, that gives them a very fair chance of keeping a PGA Tour card compared to someone like me who's been on the PGA Tour now for 17 years and have knowledge of these golf courses and everything. So.
All right, we get you out of here. 5 quick questions to go for Billy Horschel. I have always had great appreciation for how much care you put in to representing RLX and Polo. So I ask you because you know how to style. Who are the 3 best dressed guys on tour, you excluded?
Keith Mitchell.
You're proving my point.
Keith's the only one that comes to my mind.
You're proving my point. You take care, he takes care. Gosh. All right, we move on. That's the answer. All right, your guilty pleasure at home that is either in the pantry or the freezer.
Oh, I mean, I have a really massive sweet tooth. So really anything that's candy or ice cream related is in trouble. And we do a good job, or my wife's done a good job of keeping things out of the house. But my biggest guilty pleasure is I have been known in college to be able to eat an entire pack of double stuffed Oreo cookies and half a gallon of milk in one sitting. So double stuffed Oreo cookies are a very guilty pleasure of mine.
And whole milk or 2%? Please tell me it was whole milk. Go full gluttony.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
As long as it's not skim milk or almond milk, it's fine.
Yeah, skim milk is not milk. It's just skim. All right, the SEC Road Stadium you've not been to that you want to get to. Football.
Night game at LSU. That's the and since of outside the swamp, being a night game at LSU is the top of the list.
Yeah, I haven't been there. That's mine as well. All right, the best Premier League stadium in your estimation. What is the best one?
I've only been to a few of them. Stamford Bridge, Chelsea, awful environment. Their fans are just not awful. Cool little old stadium, but I mean that environment is their fans just weren't in it. I went to Fulham. I went to Craven Cottage 2 years ago, right there in the Thames River, and I thought that was a beautiful stadium. Shad Khan, who owns the Fulham team, is done a great job there. But I think that's a great environment. I think when you're able to be at a pub and walk a couple blocks to the stadium, that's something that I enjoy a lot.
All right, the golf course in America you've not played, but you're determined at some point to play it. Where is it?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of golf courses that I haven't played. I mean,
you guys don't play places. You have a job. It's amazing.
Yeah,
I ask all you guys the same thing, and it's like, I haven't been there, I haven't been there, I haven't been there.
I mean, there's guys that do a better job than me. I'm so focused on my weeks. Cypress Point, obviously.
Wow. All the years going to Pebble.
You played Cypress Point. Correct.
Wow.
Correct. I'm actually going to be out there in October for Tiger's foundation event. So I think I'm going to finally take up some of the members on their offer to play. But one I'll probably play here sooner is Fall Line in Georgia. Just opened here.
Insane.
I have a couple friends that, I have a couple friends who've played it and a couple members friends that are members, and I heard it's unreal, an unreal place.
All of it, food, accommodations, all of it. It's fantasy land. All right, listen, have a great night tonight. Always, you know I value the time. Thanks so much.
Will do. Thanks, Gary. Atlanta's going to go 2-0 tonight.
There we go. Double dip for Atlanta Drive. He'll bring the energy. Those are winning words presented by Century Insurance. They do business insurance. Century Insurance. We come back. Michael Bamberger from Golf Magazine right here on 5 Clubs. Back in on a Monday here on 5 Clubs live on Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92, Sirius XM. This segment brought to you by Peter Millar. For everything you need, you can get it. Everything. It is the premier luxury brand. Peter Millar, all the retail stores, and of course, petermillar.com. Joining me now from Golf Magazine, author, has written so many books that I've thoroughly been enthralled with, and I know he's got a re-release. The re-release is like, I don't know, what would it be analogous to on PGA Tour Champions? Second lease on life, maybe no-cut events. I don't know. Joining me now from the main line, and if he's not on the main line, he's close enough. He is Michael Bamberger, my friend. Good morning.
Thank you very much. In the city limits of Philadelphia, very proudly. And there are 2 golf courses in the city limits of Philadelphia very near us, Walnut Lane and the 9-holer at the Philadelphia Cricket Club, but great to be with you.
Always good to have you on. You know, you and I were talking before we came on, and it's like, immediately it's like, who got the most out of the lease? Like, these are things I could talk to you over a dinner for hours and hours. Let me ask you this, and I was actually going to ask you this because it relates to Scheffler, which I'll have you talk about in a moment, because he's hyper-competitive. That's what they say. Sure. Who are guys that you saw that exemplified that in whatever ways? And let's exclude Jack and Tiger. We know that. Give me some examples of guys that you think displayed a level of competitiveness that was uncommon.
Right. You know, that's such an interesting question because I often say this about Tiger, and Brad Faxon and I and others have had this conversation over the years. Not only probably the greatest golfer of all time, but the greatest grinder of all time. And we all know about his cut record, but what he really brought, like, you know, on those rare days when he shot a 75 on Thursday, you know he was going to shoot 68 on Friday and make the cut. And then semi being contention or win come Sunday. We're seeing the same thing with Scheffler right now. Gary, I know you'll know this name. A lot of listeners won't, but there was a wonderful player that friend of mine that I caddied for some named Billy Britton. But Brad and I sometimes talk about Brad
Jersey boy. A Jersey boy.
Yeah, Jersey boy. Staten Island native, and now lives in Jersey. He's been teaching for years. He's just a great person, but maybe the single greatest grinder you've ever seen in your life. And now Brad Faxon in his own way had that. You know, people like to joke that Brad was like a 2 handicapper tee to green, but that was like a +8 once he got on the green. But that kind of grind, you know, he had it too, but it was a little bit different because there was so much gift for greenside shots with Brad. We were talking earlier about a guy named Morris Satolsky, played in the 70s and the 80s.
Yes.
And he hit a crooked and short, but kept his card year after year because he had that grinded out mentality. So I think when you're talking about, but on the high end, when you're talking about, and let's add Scheffler to this list, or let's start thinking about him, I would say Hogan for sure, Big Jack for sure. Tiger, absolutely for sure. No quitting him whatsoever. And then Scheffler showing he's got it in him. If I may use this term of the art, I think he gets the red ass like nobody's business after a bad Thursday.
Yep.
It's like, that is not who I am, and I'll show up by Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, Ray Floyd to me, he was also, and I also think that athletes, I think he had a predisposition to be that way because he was inclined in other areas. Yeah, you got an example
I'll
of
give
that?
you one more.
Yeah.
How about Curtis?
Bingo. Yes, absolutely. And that to me is, I love seeing it and I love talking about it. With respect to Scheffler, one of the reasons, look, skill and all the statistical data that backs up that he does everything in totality better than everybody else. Yes, I think part of that is focus. And I think focus allows windows to stay open longer because he is not inclined to be pulled into the vortex of the toxic environment that is social media. He doesn't care about celebrity. Windows close and we think about, well, he was great forever. No, they're not. No, they're not. Do you think because of the way he is allows the production to go on for longer?
Yes and no. Yes, because of the thing you just said, that keep it simple quality that he has. You may remember this from the British Open when he talked about the Chipotle that he likes near his home, where nobody knows him. That's how he leads his life. And his thing is to come in, do the job, and move on and not get distracted. It's beautiful hearing him on sometimes complex issues like testing of clubs and what qualifies for tournament play and what doesn't. And he's like, why would you want to play with a non-conforming club? Of course you would want your club tested. So Live Golf, he's like, well, they made the choice to leave Live Golf. So I think he's got a great ability to really focus on what's important. And we're seeing that in his golf. So you think that could last and last and last and last. But what we don't know is he more Jay Haas or is he more Byron Nelson? In other words, does he want to make enough money to buy that farm like Byron did? Or does he want to play golf forever like Jay Haas? If I had to guess, he's probably more like Byron Nelson, but I really don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think that there are Jack elements to him. The idea of not having to be challenged to pursue balance, it comes to him. And that he's not wrapped up in the identity of himself as a golfer. I think that is a sustainable thing. And Jack proved that. I mean, not only did he say, over at 50 golf with ceremonial, I'll never do it. Sure, he did it. And he also finished 6th at the Masters when he was 58. I think balance allows your equilibrium to be maintained in terms of what it is that you do for an extended period of time. Do you think that has merit?
Yeah, for sure. And, we really saw that at the British Open. May we call it the British Open? When they won the British Open last year, and he was going to win. You knew the whole back nine he was going to win because he's not the kind of guy who's going to suddenly fold or make crazy mistakes or something. And he was sort of very nonchalant in victory. And then when he saw his wife and child, and his dad was there as well, and then he really burst out. You could see that golf is part of his life, but
Yes.
It's not the be all and end all. It's just a different cat altogether. I think he's absolutely spectacular. And one of the things I love about watching him, and I don't know why they don't talk about this more on TV, maybe Gary, you could do something about this, is his hands are so high above his head at the top of his swing.
Yeah.
There's it reminds me of Davis, it reminds me of Weiskopf. There's not that many tall players. I guess Tiger, when he was young, had his hands really high, but it seems like he's got hands so high, and it's like such a basic fundamentals, but especially for a tall player. And I'm stunned by it.
Yeah, you're right about Weiskopf, Davis. Jack had high hands, but he wasn't 6'3", 6'4",
Right.
like those guys, and like Scottie is. You said a different kind of cat. You wrote a terrific, pragmatic book, I thought, about Tiger, The Second Life of Tiger Woods. I thought
Thank
the
you.
section, it was so clever about, look, here's what we know, and you can either skip forward. You're not going to probably be swayed one way or the other. You feel this way, you're going to feel this way when this section. Anyway, the whole thing was very interesting. Do you think that administrative stuff and team golf can provide him, stimulation, satisfaction, joy? Do you think that?
You talk about someone who's wired differently.
Yes.
I don't think maybe in any athletic life we've ever seen anybody who had the hyper competitive gene as Tiger Woods did. Maybe Secretariat did, but tough to interview Secretariat. But to me, one of the most telling things that was just like a little comedy made when he was being interviewed by Charlie Rose on PBS. So like not a likely place to see Tiger talk about golf in the first place. And Tiger said, it's great to win. It's great to win by one. I'm paraphrasing. Great to win by 1 or 2, but I'd much rather win by 5 or 6. And I don't even think that thought ever occurred to Nicklaus and Palmer and other golfers of that generation. So that's a preamble to saying it's hard to when you've got that kind of hyper competitive drive. I think it's very hard for the rest of your life to find anything that's going to replace it. I hope for his sake that he can, but I think it's almost impossible.
Yeah, you mentioned, who is that? I think Michael Jordan was absolutely that way. And the reason why, Michael, I think that he was able to find outlets is that Michael likes engagement. If the company is right and he's not being badgered, like he is a social animal. And whether it be being on a boat, fishing competitively, being in a NASCAR pit, and his drivers won the last 2 weeks, Michael, I think, found outlets because he wasn't uncomfortable with company, which I think is a different dynamic. Let me ask you about this re-release. What a glorious term for an author. Tell everybody, for all the great books you've written, you're going back to the beginning and they're going to celebrate the 40th anniversary.
You're very nice to ask about it. Yeah, a re-release is like a chance to freshen up too, because you can go through, you can correct mistakes, and correct. I had Jock Hutchinson in the original. This made me ill when I got it in 1986. It came out Joek. I was like, oh God, this is on page 3. I don't think I found another typo in it. But yes, my longtime editor at Simon & Schuster, Joe Ferrari Adler, he read this book, The Green Road Home, as a kid at age 12. People know the book will remember this part. That's not very many people. But I caddied for Brad Faxon. The book's about my experiences caddying briefly on the tour in 85, excuse me. And Brad fired me for cause after 1 week. But anyway, Brad's written an introduction to this new version. I've written an afterward. But, Brad's not a professional writer. And I thought maybe he would appreciate getting some suggestions for me, what English teachers used to call prompts for what he might do in this introduction. And I think he duly noted all the things I suggested. I said, we did this together and that together. He ignored every last one of them, completely did his own thing. And the thing he wrote is an A+. So it's a joy to have, these long relationships that we have in golf, like you have with Bob Ford. I mean, you've known him forever. You had with Arnold, to some degree. I had it with Arnold. I met Arnold 95, I think. No, excuse me, way off, 87. Yep. But anyway, so it's a joy to have these things go on and on. But at the same time, this is part of the great, incredible beauty of our game. When you see Riviera yesterday, and they're showing 18, yep, they're showing the clubhouse, and they're showing the crowd, it's like time really does stop, and not that much changes in our game. Not radically, Augusta National, they don't make changes and make improvements every year. And I think by and large, we've done that with this game.
Well, as always, thank you. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, there's Michael Bamberger, Golf Magazine. The re-release of his first book and all the books in between are terrific. We're back to wrap it up right after this. Back on Five Clubs, pardon me, got to make sure I say this clearly. Peter Millar. When it comes to what I wear for the last 16 years, all of it is Peter Millar. They have more to offer you, and it's not just, they have more sweaters. No, they have more everything in terms of being able to outfit yourself for all the aspects of your life, socially, professionally, going to the beach, going to the mountains, every activity, they've got you covered. The premier luxury brand is Peter Millar and petermillar.com. Gino Tinakun, she's got style. She goes to Thailand. It's the second event of the LPGA season. And the pressure, the comfort that people associate with home, I think is geography. The other parts of it are the challenge. It's being around people that are totally invested in you, which while they're trying to allow you to be fully focused, that alone can create distraction. It also can create pressure in the things that you want to do. I mean, Casey Jarvis, who won on the DP World Tour, said, I felt so nervous because I wanted to win in front of my dad, which he did yesterday at 22. And this young lady, who's the #1 player in the world, to go home to Thailand to see the size of the galleries. And while there are challenges for people to understand in total how good it is for the LPGA to be as global as they are, I think that there are just that. There are challenges in that, because I think that every country, and this one in particular, can be myopic about, if it's not here, why should I care? Now, I'm not comparing, a hockey game in Italy to women's golf. That's the other part of it, as far as time of day, and when these things happen, when you're not conscious of them, to either put it on and then it goes by you and there are 40,000 other things for you to watch, you wonder how much traction this stuff actually gives. I think in total, it's great. And at the end, the LPGA has had its 2 best players win the first 2 events. One shortened clumsily, the other while it was on the other side of the world and at times of the day that you're not necessarily watching television, unless you're an insomniac. So that is most important, because when you get back to where you're engaged and you're going, she's won twice, you're in the final round together. Much more to do this week, because the PGA Tour comes to Florida, and there are a lot of things that are very, very different. Have a great Monday. People in the Northeast, I hope you get through it all. We'll see you tomorrow.